Well, hello, hello, hello. I am Pastor Rhonda, founder of Celebrate Life Cancer Ministry, and your host for Celebrate Life today. Thank you so much for joining us in our conversation that has to do with the Bench to Community Initiative. So let me just introduce you to Dr. Dede, and she will launch us into our conversation.
Hi, everybody. Well, welcome. Thank you, Pastor Rhonda, so much for having us on today on your wonderful show. So, as she said, my name is Dede Tete, and I am an assistant professor of public health at Chapman University in Orange, California. I'm going to also have some of my colleagues that are on the show as well introduce themselves, and then I'll give a quick intro to what Bench to Community is all about. So if I can have Mr. Turner, if you want to introduce yourself to folks, and then we will go with Dr. Trevino next.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and good evening to some of you guys who are listening across the country. My name is Bing Turner. I'm currently the executive director of the Heritage Health Initiative, and we are located in Claremont, California. For this project, I was at the time a senior research analyst at Loma Linda University out of the School of Behavioral Health, where we were part of this, I think, very progressive research project in breast cancer in African American women, in the relationship between hair care products and chemicals. So this is a project that started many moons ago, and I'm happy to see that it's still relevant, number one, but then also that there's some action behind a lot of the research that we've conducted in the past.
All right, let's have Dr. Trevino say hello.
Hi, everyone listening, and thank you, Pastor Rhonda, for inviting us to have this conversation with you and all of your listeners. My name is Lindsay Trevino, and I'm an assistant professor in the Division of Health Equities in the Department of Population Sciences at City of Hope in Duarte, California. And I'm a bench scientist. So I'm learning a lot from Dr. Tate and Mr. Turner about how to work with the community and what the community needs are and how I can help translate that with experiments in my laboratory.
All right, awesome. So Pastor Rhonda wanted me to give you all kind of a quick rundown of what is the Bench to Community Initiative, right? So I am one of the co-principal investigators of the project, along with Dr. Lindsay Trevino. For some reason, the camera wants me to be up close and personal with y'all today, because I am like right here, right? Trying to stand back, but it's not working. So I'm just gonna first, there really wouldn't be a Bench to Community Initiative without the project that Mr. Turner, being my brother from another mother and a different father, just spoke about, right? So we were a part of a community-based participatory research project called Cost of Beauty, and that started in 2013. And as a part of that project that I joined in 2014, Black women really wanted to know if the chemicals that were in their hair products was increasing their risk for breast cancer. So that was the big picture question that we were attempting to answer. And as a part of that collaborative, there was a partnership between Ms. Phyllis Clark of Healthy Heritage Movement in Riverside, California, in addition to Ms. Eudora Mitchell from Quinn Community Corporation. And the academic institution that was a part of this project was Loma Linda University. And this project was funded by the California Breast Cancer Research Program. So again, answer the question that community members had about the chemicals in their personal care products, specifically their hair products, and breast cancer risk. So that was how all of this really started. I was just a graduate student, really interviewing Black women. Bing was interviewing Black men about just their relationship with their hair. How does that relate to their identity? How does that relate to the overall societal perception about beauty? And then in addition to that, how are the chemicals that they are using specifically in their hair products potentially playing a role in increasing their risk for breast cancer? So I want to kind of have Bing talk a little bit about his experience with the project, because he had a different perspective being a Black male, and then interviewing some of his fellow colleagues as well about hair and identity from the perspective of us. So wanted to kind of invite Bing to talk a little bit about his experience with that project, and then I will kind of usher us into how all of the data that we collected from that project really set up the framework for what is now known as Bench to Community Initiative.
I think Dr. Tete couldn't be underscored enough how cool this project was initially, because you truly had a situation where you had two community organizations who sort of was working together, who approached an academic institution. You know, a lot of times you hear about academics and community organizations not really sort of jiving, and the mission and the goals of the institutions are always sort of like not always congruent. This was truly a situation where there was a community need. The community actually had really legitimate questions. They approached the academics at our institution, in this case, Dr. Susan Montgomery. And we actually worked together to find a research grant, a pilot grant from the California Breast Cancer Research Program to actually fund the project. And I think it was through this partnership that we were able to sort of explore some of these issues, as far as opinions about beauty. And then we went a little bit further about the hair care products that these women are using in their hair to make themselves more beautiful. We literally went inside beauty salons and did interviews with hair care providers. We did interviews with the women who were actually in these salons who were getting their hair done. We were able to, through these community linkages, contact community members who had been dealing with these issues, who were either breast cancer survivors, or we were, and in my case, I was able to interview a lot of men who were either partners or married spouses of women who had survived breast cancer. And then we actually interviewed people who did not have breast cancer, but because they were exposed to these chemicals, and because they were, they were in our cohort, our range of people that we wanted to sort of talk to, we were able to interview them. And this process took about, I think, 9 to 12 months to sort of from the beginning of the process until the data started coming in. And from those experiences, we were able to produce poster presentations, published papers. I know we have at least 7 publications, probably more, my last count. Okay. I was able to get a publication in on the men perspective. And I think one of because a lot of people, when I would talk about this project, they would say, you're a guy, why is this important? And I always go back to the idea of family and African-American women not carrying this burden of breast cancer mortality on their own. We have to, sort of pick up some of the pieces. We have to be support. We have to be encouragement. I'm speaking about Black men. And so we also understood that men also had a lot of influence in how these women perceived themselves as beautiful, from the type of hairstyle that they were rocking at the time to all the different things that they were putting in their hair, for better or for worse. Some men wanted their sisters to, as they say, use the creamy crack and to press their hair out for whatever reason. It was a myriad of reasons why they wanted these things, but I looked at it as an opportunity for African American men and women to sort of work together to kind of figure out these issues on our own.
I love it. So, so again, Bing has been a part of the initial kind of the idea, the writing of the grant. So fast forward to, so this took place between 2013 and 2016 when the grant sunsetted. And essentially, we were able to share a lot of our lessons learned from the project, not only with the academic community, but we also shared this information with the lay community, right? So one of the main and one of the more important aspects of the research, or the type of methodology that we were using, community-based participatory, it involves going back to the community to share our main findings. So as a part of my postdoctoral training, that was what I did. I went back to some of the churches that we spoke at and shared information about the project. More importantly, some of the high-level findings from the project was, one, a lot of people were not aware that there were chemicals in their personal care products that could potentially cause them harm, specifically focused on breast cancer. Some of those products, again, we also looked at hair products that salon owners were using, and we were able to run these products through a database called Skin Deep that's created by the Environmental Working Group. And one of the main chemicals that kept popping up often was parabens. So specifically different types of parabens. So sharing that information with the community about what our main findings were, that Black women, yes, Black identity and hair is synonymous for Black women. The men believed it, the women believed it. But what was more disconcerting about some of our findings was that Black women were not willing to let go of these products, even if the conclusion comes back that these products were causing direct harm to their health. So that was one of the most disconcerting aspect of what we found. But when we look at the overall Eurocentric ideal of beauty that's perpetuated in our society, and then when you look at structural racism factors, where as a Black woman working in spaces where predominantly white people are a part of, then a lot of what we found also made sense, because you have the pressures of society dictating that you have to look a certain way, which essentially pressures women to use the creamy crack, because relaxing your hair conforms you to that straight hair is what is deemed beautiful, versus the afro that I'm wearing for today's show. So all of that information, I went back and had a conversation with Black women, their partners, etc. And a lot of the questions that kept coming up was, all right, this is great, but what do you want us to do about it? Like, how do I change the way that, I want to wear my hair the way that I want to wear my hair, but are there other ways for me to wear my hair where it's potentially the chemicals are not killing me? And then the other question that people kept asking was, well, what's the biological mechanisms? They didn't use those exact words, but what are these chemicals doing to my body? I could help answer the first part of that question, but I couldn't really answer the second part of that question. So this is where Dr. Trevino comes into the link, and I'm going to call her Lindsay for the duration of this show. This is where she comes into play, where we have all of this information. We know that this is an issue in our community, specifically because we also know that our cosmetic industry is not governed by our government, right? So if I wanted to put together products today in my kitchen, I can essentially put it out there into the market, and the FDA is not going to ask me what the ingredients are in those products, right? So that is the reality. We have one federal legislation that governs the multi-billion-dollar industry that is our cosmetic industry, and it's a 2.5-page bill that is over 80 plus years old. So in case you were wondering if the products on the shelves at Target, Walmart, or wherever you get your beauty supplies and your hair products are governed by your federal government, they are not. That 2.5-page document actually has banned 11 chemicals of concern. This is compared to over 1,500 chemicals of concern that have been banned in the European Union, just to give you some comparison and context. So is this topic important? Yes. And it's important because of multiple reasons, right? So I'm going to have Dr. Lindsay kind of jump on the line and talk about how she got sort of roped into this project, but really from the perspective of why this project is important from a health perspective. What are the statistics around breast cancer? And then also just tell us a little bit about your own personal experience with your involvement with what we're trying to do with Bench to Community, and the like.
Yeah, okay. Roped in. That's funny. You're like, I roped you in. No, I willingly came on board. I was like, let's do it. We've got to know. Yeah, so we know that there are disparities in breast cancer, right? So Black women are at higher risk of getting breast cancer at early ages, so under the age of 40, than any other racial or ethnic groups. We know that Black women are 41% more likely to die from breast cancer than white women. And so there's studies both from epidemiology, so studying people, and then laboratory studies studying models of cells and animals in the lab, that there are associations between endocrine disrupting chemicals such as parabens that Dede mentioned earlier, from personal care products and breast cancer development and progression. So when the question was posed from the community, well, how do we know? What are the mechanisms? I went into the literature and I was like, yeah, we know that we have all this evidence that it's bad, that parabens in particular, right? If we're focusing on parabens, are bad in terms of breast cancer development and progression. But then when you take a closer look at the actual studies, the studies only used white cell lines and only focused on white women. And so even though we know that parabens have a link, and paraben exposure has a link to breast cancer development, we don't have that data in the population that is most affected, and we know they have these disparities in breast cancer risk. So that was kind of how I got roped in. But I think that I think personally, it's a very important topic, because there's a lot we don't know. And so that was when my laboratory started working on the question of what can we find out about the link between parabens and breast cancer development in the context of Black women and samples and cell lines from Black women. You're on mute.
Of course, I'm on mute. Her team has been phenomenal. And just to give everyone a recap, if you're just joining us, my name is Dede Tete. I'm one of the co-principal investigators of the Bench to Community Initiative. We also have Dr. Lindsay Trevino on the line, who's the other side of Bench to Community, also a principal investigator. And Bing Turner is one of our community advisory board members that has been a part of really another initiative that we were a part of called Cost of Beauty that really laid the groundwork for what we're doing with Bench to Community. So one of the things that I think is important for the audience members to know is, again, this question of the relationship between chemicals in our hair products, and specifically breast cancer incidence, wasn't a question that this group came up with out of thin air. It was based on community concerns, one, but then also evidence in the literature that's showing, like Dr. Lindsay just stated, showing relationships between certain chemicals in our personal care products known as endocrine disrupting chemicals, as well as health outcomes. So our focus is on breast cancer. However, there are other links to other health concerns that our group is specifically not focused on. But the point of the story is that your products are not regulated. The chemicals in your products are not regulated. Endocrine disrupting chemicals are ubiquitous, which means that they are literally everywhere. Even though our focus is on personal care products, they are everywhere. And what we really want people to gain from the work that we're doing, again, the voices of the community has spoken. We notice that there is a gap in the literature, and we're bringing all of this information together to intervene. Specifically intervene to help people select safer alternatives that may be out there, to educate individuals about this particular topic, but then also to provide opportunities for you as a consumer and also as a constituent to use your voice in voting, to vote for to vote individuals into office that have your best interest in mind, specifically as it relates to the legislative piece of personal care products not being regulated as well in the United States as in other countries, specifically the European Union.
So this is going to be a very good topic for me. I stand before you or sit before you as a 21-year inflammatory breast cancer survivor. I had worn a perm in my hair since I was 12 years old. And in the last 5 years, decided I need to do something different. But even in the attempt to be natural and finding a product that works, and then another one that works for me. So this is going to be a great conversation for us.
So I can relate, Pastor Rhonda. This is my third big chop. So for those of you in the natural world, big chop is essentially the day where you cut off the creamy crack excess off of your hair, and you get to see, for some of us, for the first time in our lives, what our natural hair textures look like. And I went through that process 3 times because I really didn't have a lot of patience for my hair. Let's just be for real. And then in addition to that, some of these products just don't work for my hair. I am quote unquote 4C, which is more on the curly side of the natural hair spectrum. My curls are very tightly wound, and it takes me 4 hours to do my, it's just like a whole thing. Like it's just a relationship that I have to develop with my hair. There's two times I wasn't about that life. So this is my third time going at it. So I totally, that resonated with me because I'm still trying. I've been playing the long route. So I cut my hair again in 2014, and here we are in 2022. Haven't put a relaxer or anything in it, more so because of this work that I'm doing and the evidence that's coming out about a lot of these chemicals. And I'm just like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm good. We're gonna develop a relationship with my hair because I'm not trying to kill myself with some of these chemicals.
And the temptation is great to return because we know how much more manageable it is, but is it the best thing for me? I actually had a conversation just last week with a hairstylist, and the hairstylist, her mom passed away from cancer. And so she's in the cancer fight in a great kind of way. And I just asked the question, are you aware of some of the chemicals in some of the products that could potentially be causing cancer in your patients and even yourself? And she was flabbergasted. She said, "What are you talking about?" So even hairstylists don't know about this necessarily. So this is definitely something that is going to be very eye awakening.
One of the things that would fascinated me about this project, more so the process, is that with community-based research, participatory research, um, how these issues are typically real-time issues as they impact the researchers. So like how Dr. Tete was saying, how through this research process, she has done the big chop. I know when we initially started this process, as I was sharing the information with loved ones and people in my circle, so many people that I realized that were in my circle that were either breast cancer survivors or young women who were actually going through breast cancer while we were doing this work. And so it's a blessing to be part of something like this, but then it's a responsibility, I think, that Black researchers and other researchers of color have to their community, which is when you're looking at projects and research programs and things to attach yourself with. You're put in a position where you can attach yourself to something that truly has meaning to your life and also those around you. And so it's just been a really good opportunity. And then also, of course, I can't say it enough, having these conversations, ongoing conversations with African American men was very enlightening. And I didn't realize how much influence that men had in the way women, perceive themselves, and the hairstyles that they rock, and also having some kind of sway into saying, you may want to try another alternative because I care for you, I love you, I want you to be around for a long time. Um, this is important to us, and so I think one of my takeaways from this project and process is to encourage more men to be more aware, but then also be more sensitive, because then we also realize that the very complex social component that's happening with um, uh, white hegemony and what white society deems to be right and correct and true, and what the gatekeepers say is appropriate hair dress when you get to work. Um, that stuff is real. It's real, and so yeah, this is a real good thing, I think, for the communities and the researchers involved in the project.
What did you call them? What? You
I
said
said
what?
white hegemony.
I have not heard that one.
Come on, we're academics.
Woo! Okay, sorry.
It's okay.
Oh man, no, so for those of you that don't know, for the likelihood of having a Black woman lead a research project or a Latina, um, Lindsay's background lead a research project like this is unlikely. So there are 3% of Black women that are full-time faculty members in the academy. And the number for individuals from a Latinx background are a little bit lower than that. So for when Lindsay and I started talking about this project, and she told me that no one has looked at breast cancer cell lines from African ancestry backgrounds, even though Black women are dying from the disease at a higher percentage than white women and other racial groups. I was shocked, but then I also was not surprised, because you study what you care about. You invest your time and your money and resources into what you care about. And unfortunately, even though we have all of these disparities related to health outcomes, not just breast cancer, we're not the focus of a lot of these conversations, because oftentimes the people leading these efforts they don't look like our communities, right? So this is just my little plug to say, if there is an individual that looks like you that is wanting to work with you to answer the questions that you have, please participate as a part of the research enterprise, because it really does help bring more of our voices to the front and center, so that more of us can continue to do the good work to support our communities in the end run, in the long run. But I wanted Lindsay to chime in real quick and talk a little bit about why we're focused on parabens. What are they specifically? So one thing that we shared earlier was that when we looked at the products that Black stylists were using in San Bernardino and Riverside County specifically, so this project was focused on the Inland Empire, or Inland Valleys, depending on who you ask, the IE for short, and in California. And those stylists, the types of products that they were using, one of the main chemicals that kept popping up, and is also a chemical of concern, was different types of parabens. So I'm going to have Lindsay kind of talk a little bit about what parabens are, and that we're not just talking about relaxers, but talking about all the things that you use on your body, on your hair, and your children's hair and body, etc. So
Yeah, so we've been throwing around the word parabens, and we've been throwing around the word endocrine disrupting chemicals. And so parabens are a type of endocrine disrupting chemical, and what those chemicals are is that they mimic natural hormones in the body. So there are some of these endocrine disrupting chemicals that can act like estrogen, and they'll go and they'll do things in your body that estrogen will do. But obviously, they're not natural estrogen. And so they're disrupting the normal function of your body. And that's leading to health outcomes, adverse health outcomes, right? So problems with your health, including increased breast cancer risk. And parabens are widely used in not just relaxers, not just, we can't tell you it's one type of product. It's in a lot of different cosmetics and personal care products because they're preservatives. So they help increase the shelf life of products, so you don't have the growth of bacteria and mold as they're sitting there on the shelf waiting for you to go pick them up when you go to the store. They're absorbed into the skin though. And so just because you say, well, I just use it on my hair, we can actually absorb it through the skin and the scalp. And our bodies are pretty good at clearing it, clearing these chemicals. But the problem is that if you use these products that have parabens every day, and you use multiple, if it's all your cosmetics and all your personal care products that you use every day, then you're being continuously exposed. So even though your body's clearing it, you just have so much in your body building up because you use so many products. And just to give you kind of a perspective, we've mentioned the environmental working group and the Skin Deep database. And so there are different types of parabens. So some of the things you could be looking out for are butylparaben and propylparaben. So if you look at the ingredient list, these are two types. On the environmental working group's hazard scale, they have a hazard scale that goes from 1 to 10, with 10 being the most hazardous. Butylparaben and propylparaben are 9s on this hazard scale. And then a very common paraben is another one is methylparaben. And methylparaben is a 3 to 4 on this hazard scale. So they're not, they're pretty hazardous, right? And they're usually found in combination with each other. So you'll see propylparaben and methylparaben, or butylparaben and methylparaben. And I also want to point out that there was a study that showed that looked at the levels of parabens in different women in the United States, depending on race and ethnicity. And parabens are at higher concentrations in Black women than any other race or ethnicity, according to that study. And so it's in the products that we use every day. We have evidence that there are higher levels in Black women. And as I mentioned before, parabens have been shown to cause breast cancer cells to grow, invade, spread, and also express genes linked to cancer and hormone action, but again, in white cell lines. So, so this is why we're doing what we're doing, because parabens is one example of endocrine disrupting chemicals. We should be looking out for some. There's some other chemicals we should be looking out for, but parabens for sure we know are pretty harmful.
Well, I have a question. So, African Americans don't necessarily wash their hair every day. So, does that mean that it's increasing if I used it as a shampoo or a leave in conditioner? Or is it that it fades away until I use it again?
So that's an interesting question, and I'm gonna share kind of a response, and then I'm gonna have Lindsay chime in as well. So it's not necessarily, we're having kind of a bigger conversation where we want you all to focus on not just your hair products, but all of your products, right? So if you think about it, on wash day, for example, I use 7 products that I can think of right now, on top of my head. Um, so depending on if I have to detangle or not, that's another product, right? So if you think about shampoo, conditioner, leave-in conditioner, and then all the things, all the other products that you have to use to style, the oils that you use, all of those things. If you've ever flipped the bottle around, for example, so there was a study that Breast Cancer Prevention Partners did a little while ago, and they looked at the chemicals in our personal care products and as well as our cleaning products. And out of the hundreds of chemicals that they looked at, the most toxic product that came up at the top of the list over even cleaning products was Just For Me product that we use on children's hair, right? And it was a form of like a hair milk, which makes our hair a little bit more manageable, right? So that should make people mad. But the point of that is what they found in that particular project was a lot of the chemicals that are in the products that we use on a daily basis are oftentimes not even written on the bottle, right? And it's often because there's that one word on most of our products called fragrance, and fragrance can contain between a lot of different chemicals, so between 10 to 100 depending on the fragrance makeup. It's also protected by a trade secret, so they do not have to share what is a part of that particular makeup of that fragrance. So I say all of that to say it's not just your hair product, right? So it's a cumulative effect that we don't really know specifically from a laboratory perspective, and also from an epidemiological perspective. We can look at risk factors, but we really don't know the cumulative effect of these chemicals that are having on our bodies directly. And what I mean by that is, again, if you think about just from a wash day perspective, the number of products that you use, the number of chemicals contained in one product, and you don't even know all of the chemicals that product fully contains. So the products that you clean your tub with, the products that you wash your dishes with, the products that you use on your car seat, you're exposing yourself to a number of endocrine disrupting chemicals on a daily basis. So like I said at the very beginning, EDCs are ubiquitous. Like they're found all around you. And they're in a lot of our products that we use as well. That's oftentimes not regulated. So I'm going to have Lindsay kind of add some context to that as well from the bench side of things.
Yeah, and I just want to add that that's a really good point, because you could say, well, I don't use it all the time, right? So what's the big deal? But the thing that is pretty insidious or kind of scary a little bit about endocrine disrupting chemicals is you don't need a lot to have an effect, because remember, they act like hormones, and hormones are not like drugs where natural hormone levels in your body are tightly regulated. They're at low levels so that you can have normal function of your systems in your body, your organs and your tissues. So you actually don't need a lot to disrupt that, right? Because your hormone system is ready. It's ready to react to low levels because that's how it normally works. we're not running around with a ton of estrogen in our bodies or testosterone, not well, unless you take it exogenously, right? Like you take it. But basically our systems are set up so that we respond to low levels. And so a lot of the laboratory findings show that these endocrine disrupting chemicals like parabens have their effects at very low levels that you wouldn't expect to see effects at. So that's the context I would add from the laboratory.
Awesome. So is there anything else we need to talk about? I mean, to add to this conversation? I have one other question, but it's slightly off topic. It's a little bit of about what Bing was talking about, and involving the men.
Well, go ahead and ask Bing that question, and then we can, because yeah, he's like yeah. Go ahead, brother.
Your resident brother. Okay.
So when I was diagnosed back in, actually my journey actually began on 9/11. So it's 21 years ago. And I wish I knew enough then to have documented where I heard this comment, but I heard it and it stuck with me. And it said that 85% of African American men leave the woman upon a female cancer.
Mm.
And to hear you say that the men should become more involved in the cancer conversation is one thing, but then to understand their impact on the women in their life, whether it be a mate, whether it be a sister, a mother, a niece, a daughter, whatever the role of the woman is, to understand that their voice is so powerful. I know we act like we don't hear a thing, right? But we do, and it settles with us. But how can we get more men to pay attention to, or to be aware, to be involved even?
That's first of all, that statistic just hit me in the chest. I mean, it's disheartening. It's sad. I have heard of there is an actual statistic that upon a breast cancer diagnosis, there is a number where a certain percentage of men they disengage and or they just like they leave the relationship. I have heard that. I don't know what the number is. Nevertheless, that stuck with you. And whatever.
And but I have to put a little caveat there,
Yeah.
that 50% of them probably were leaving anyway. Yeah, go ahead.
Walking out the door. So that's a huge task. I know for myself and for a lot of the guys that are in my circle, I think one way, I don't care how old you are, I don't care your socioeconomic level, your education level. One thing that was consistent was all of the men pretty much talked about how influential the media was and their decision making as far as what's beautiful to them, for better or for worse. Whether it was the women that had pressed hair or highly chemicaled hair, or women that wanted to do a more natural look, or they call it protective styles or natural styles of braids or dreadlocks, or locked hair. So I think just reflecting is that there has to be a very intentional, I think, unfortunately, like media campaign to sort of show men that there are other ways that beauty can be defined. And I think we got a sense of that. Unfortunately, like during the pandemic, there was some like weird stuff that was happening in the pandemic where, not weird, but it was just some things that sort of to unearth. So I think there was a huge people embraced more, embraced their culture, a little bit more because I think we were in a situation where we really had to lean on each other. So I saw that happening. I saw the more outpouring of different images of African American women, and just women, period, and what standards of beauty would look like. It would be white women with like short haircuts, or you know, or Latino women with embracing their thick curly hair. So I kind of for myself, and then just kind of chatting with the rest of the brothers, I actually saw this happening. Um, but it's just, I think it's just ongoing conversation, and then there has to be some type of media campaign to help kind of push this thing. Um, that's the beauty of and Lindsay sort of hinted on this, of like translational research, or how can we take all this really cool scientific information that's happening in these academic towers and distill it and break it down so it's receivable, and not receivable, that's the wrong word, but it's palatable and acceptable, and your layman or lay woman can actually hear these messages. I think that's very important. But it's not going to happen by nature. It literally has to be intentional. And we just got to keep on loving each other too. I laugh because my wife, she has had dreadlocks for almost 15 years, and it's a style that I have grown accustomed to. It's a style that I love in her. I like to see it in other women. So she recently took her locks out, and so um, I'm like, the research shows, baby, that men have an impact on the women and their hairstyles. Can you go back to dreadlocks? She's like, nah, I'm good. She's not using the chemicals in her hair, but she's wearing her natural hair. And if anything, I'm just pleased and in love with that process, because she's saying how much she's adoring. She hasn't seen what her natural hair looked like in 15 years, which is a long time. So I'm experiencing this in real time. Um, and I mean, for the most, so to answer your question, I don't know if there's a magic bullet. I just know from the conversations that we have with the men, I know that media plays an important role in these decisions that men make in what they think is beautiful, what they think is beautiful or not. So.
Well, I'm happy to hear you say we must continue to love each other.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's not something new we have to learn how to do.
Absolutely. No, we got to continue. There's love there. There's definitely love there. I don't subscribe to the I'm on the other side. I'm Dee Dee's her brother, her institutional brother, whatever, her resident brother. So we've had these talks before, like what is going on in these brothers' minds, and um, there is love there. There's support there. It's just it's not enough of it. We always need more. I think it should be a little bit more consistent, but I'm not going to give brothers a hard time. We are loving our spouses. We are loving our partners. We are supportive.
We love y'all, like for real, for real.
We love y'all.
Yeah, we love y'all. There's a lot of love there, but I wanted to go back a little bit to what Pastor Rhonda said. Well, one of the things is like how do we help support folks to make safer personal care product choices, right? Which is the conversation. So we'll close with that. And there are things that you can do now, and there are several things that are a part of the Bench to Community initiative that we have that you can definitely be a part of. So you can also visit our website as well, which is bench2community.org, which is another provide resources and et cetera, and also events that we have related to salon conversations where we come together and have conversations like these with researchers, stylists, legislators, like all the people. And then we also have a symposium that my brother Bing is going to talk a little bit about and invite you all to come join us this September. But Lizzie and I are going to just share a little bit of more information with you related to what you can do as a consumer right now. One is to just use fewer products. So again, if we go back to kind of my first example of wash day, and if you think about all the products that you are using on your hair to wash off the chemical, the products, and then put additional ones on, using fewer products, right? So not just personal care product, but using fewer products in your kitchen, using fewer products if you wash your car, using fewer products overall to reduce the number of chemicals that you're being exposed to. You don't have to be a chemist or go back to school and get a degree in chemistry to get a better understanding of the chemicals that are in your products. There are really smart people out there that have developed these applications that are right on your phone, and there are also desktop applications that you can use as well. One of the applications that I'm going to mention is Claria. It's a Google Chrome app where you can download it onto your computer. And if you shop at Amazon, like most of us do, and then Sephora, Walmart, for example, if you download this plugin onto your computer, when you go to check out, Claria will actually flag all of the chemicals of concern in the products that you are about to buy. So now it's up to you. Do you want to make the decision of purchasing this product, knowing all of the potential health ramifications, or choose a different alternative? And so this is an application that is for free for you to download right now at your fingertips. And it's spelled Clearya. In addition to that, EWG Healthy Living application, which is the app phone. We mentioned that earlier. And the desktop version is called the Skin Deep Database. And you can type in products and it'll provide a rating score like Dr. Trevino shared earlier between 1 and 10. It's also color coordinated for you as well. So red means stop, yellow means you may want to think about it and do something else, and green means go. So it'll give you a hazard score for the product overall, a hazard score for each of the chemicals in those products, and then it's also color coordinated to help support your selection process. Other products that work in a similar fashion are Think Dirty. And then Detox Me also provides alternatives for you to make your own products if that is your jam. All right. So one of the other things that we want to share with you all are some advocacy opportunities for you to get involved with. And I'm going to have Dr. Lindsay Trevino go ahead and talk a little bit about the Safer Beauty for All package that we will love for you all to participate in adding your name, sharing this information with your congressperson to let them know that this topic is of interest to you.
Yeah, so real quick before I do that, we had a question from Facebook where are parabens one of the products banned in Europe? And yes, but not the particular ones that we've talked about. So there's a lot of different types of parabens. So 5 different parabens are completely banned in the European Union. And the others that we talked about today are strictly regulated because they are known to be endocrine disruptors. So yes, that is true. So going back to the Safer Beauty for All, if you want more information, you can go to the Breast Cancer Prevention Partners website. And that's where you can take action and have, use their system to send a letter to your congressional representative. And the Safer Beauty bill is really 4 bills wrapped together. So banning 11 of the most toxic chemicals is one of them. Defending the health of women of color and salon workers is another bill. We talked about fragrance, so revealing fragrance and ingredients of fragrance in your products, and also having more of a supply chain transparency. So there's 4 different bills in this Safer Beauty bill package. that you can write your congressional representatives about. And I've done some advocacy with big scientific organizations, and I've heard that if a congressional office gets just 10 letters about the same topic, they have to do something about it. They cannot ignore it. So they keep track of what they get information about. So it's not, you can make a big difference if you and a couple of your friends get together and you say, we're going to go to this website, we're going to fill out these forms, go to the Breast Cancer Prevention Partners website, do the take action. And it's just a handful of you. You can make a big difference right there. Boom. Those offices cannot ignore it if they get enough letters about the same topic. So this is something that you can and should do if you think this is important.
And on that note, we have Janet Noodleman, who is one of the representatives from Breast Cancer Prevention Partners, who is going to be talking more about how you can get involved in the legislative process at our symposium coming up September 16th. So I'm going to use that to kind of segue into having Mr. Turner give us a little bit more context about the symposium and how folks can get involved.
Sure. So the symposium would take place on a Friday, September 16th this year. We have speakers, we have music, we have a yoga session. And I think I think the most important part of this event that we're having, it's basically there's a teach-in. So it'll be an opportunity for you to learn more about breast cancer, about the bill. One of the things I like about this bill that we will talk about at the symposium is that we'll learn more about the bill, but then also how we talked about the ingredients in fragrances. So one of the things that the bill pushes is that it's going to compel manufacturers to talk about and to list their ingredients. That's a discussion that will take place at the conference. And that's it. That's all I have.
So it should be. So we're gonna have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
This is the second year that we're hosting this conference, and it's really a collaboration across different disciplines. So Dr. Trevino is going to be sharing a little bit more information about the laboratory work that we've been doing for the past 2-3 years now, that was just presented at a conference in Atlanta. So you'll have an opportunity not only to engage with individuals in the legislative space one-on-one to ask questions, but you'll also be engaging with researchers that are doing the work and bring your questions to them as well. So if you've ever thought about, okay, how do these researchers do what they do? And then how does this information get to me? This is an opportunity for you to have that one-on-one dialogue with folks that are doing the work on your behalf. At least we are. Can't say that about everybody, but we are doing this work on your behalf. And again, our website has the information for you to sign up. It is completely free. So under the events tab on our website, you can click on that and it'll take you to our website where you can register and then share that information out to other folks in your network as well. So
this has been a marvelous conversation, one that I really feel like we can carry on even more. So I look forward to even bringing us back after, what is it, September 16th?
Mm-hmm.
Coming back and giving us an update on the information that we have at that time. And I would just want to thank Dr. Ditti and Dr. Lindsay and Dr. Bing. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing with our community. We've had a number of comments in the background saying how informative and how helpful this information is. And a lot of times, I've been in a lot of conversations that talk about how to shop for your food. And now I see the importance of shopping for everything, checking the labels on everything. and including the things in my house that I clean the house with, not just those things that I put on my body, what I wash the clothes with, because now I'm going to lay my face on that pillow with that detergent or whatever the case might be. This whew, was a great conversation and very eye opening. So I'd like to thank all of you for joining us. And again, I am Pastor Rhonda, founder of Celebrate Life Cancer Ministry, and your host for Celebrate Life today. And as always, as we close our show, we say, choose life.